I want to shout out Sam Presti as well because I feel like it speaks to the Oklahoma City Thunder's just total ownership group. The fact that most of the time when you have someone like Sam Presti who's been there for 20 years, you would think that, especially with the failure that they had not winning that title with the big three, Harden, Westbrook, and Durant, that they would have moved on, gone a different direction. But the fact that they stayed the course, they traded away Westbrook, they traded away everybody else, and then was able to turn into the SGAs, the Jalen Williams, the Chet Holmgrens, tanking properly, like tanking the right way, where they're able to get all these great players, adding the Lou Dort to the world, adding the Carusos, adding the Hartensteins, which is ultimately why they're here where they are. Like, credit to Sam Presti and then credit to their coach. Like, this team has, I believe it's the sixth most wins in NBA history, and they're well on. I mean, they're one game away from the finals. No matter what happens, they've had an insane season. SGA, the development that he's had as well, because let's not forget, like, he came from the Clippers, and we always knew that he was going to be like a solid, good player. But we didn't think that SGA, like, at least I didn't think SGA was going to turn into this superstar MVP level, James Harden scoring production level numbers that he's turned into. And I feel like that's got to be credit to him as well.
Yeah, and then also the thing where people don't talk about SGA too, and why I think he could inevitably be better than Harden all time is just his defense as well. Because he like plays very similar to Kobe, plays very similar to Michael as far as their play style. But and mostly I'm just comparing his mid-range game because he has one of the best mid-ranges in the NBA right now, and he's like a similar player to Kawhi, but just the fact that he can go out there and be an elite defender, and he's really long too, especially at the point guard position, so that's definitely a luxury to have SGA there as well. So we will see what happens in game 6, but with this finals here, there's some interesting things. This is the first final since 2006 where we could have a unique NBA champion. So since 2006, I believe that was the first finals that the Mavericks made it to, where this will be the first time a team won the NBA championship. That's definitely interesting. It'll also be the first, if SGA wins finals MVP, it'll be the first finals since the 2012-2013 season that the MVP won the finals and the MVP award. So almost the first time in over a decade.
Why do you think it is that it's been basically 15 years that the MVP is going to win their first title? Because I remember, like, I mean, Steph was super close in 2016, and then Kevin Durant was close in I think 2015, the Thunder made it to conference finals, if I'm not mistaken. But why do you think it is, like, the fact that it's been, I think it's going to be 14 years now that it's gone since they've won, like, MVP has won the finals ultimately?
I would say first is voter fatigue. And then second would be if you have to be that dominant to put up those type of numbers in the regular season, you're probably going to burn out by the time the finals come around because you obviously don't have enough help.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I feel like a lot of these MVPs too, like we have Harden. I think all these people that I'm listing are going to be people who are worthy of MVP, but like James Harden, he was getting snubbed constantly by Kevin Durant and Steph Curry, who's putting on one of the greatest scoring outputs we've ever seen. I feel like his MVPs, they felt like they needed to award him that MVP. And then, we had Russell Westbrook's triple-double year where it felt like, especially with the narrative, they gave it to him. And then Joel Embiid, another guy that was one of the better big mans in the NBA, was getting snubbed with Joker winning 3 of the last 4. They give him an MVP. I feel like
Giannis had a
you
few.
nailed it. Kind of like the voter fatigue. A lot of these MVPs, it felt like, were winning the MVP because they've been good for a long period of time, but didn't get their proper dues.
Yeah, and I feel like we're going away from the best player on the best team mentality. Kind of like you have to have a historically great season along with having a historically great team. And the thing with SGA is, while him and Jalen Williams are the only two like dominant scorers on that team, they have a lot of shooters that just randomly get crazy hot. I mean, you have like a guy in Wallace who hits his first 3 in the finals, and then he ends up basically going perfect that game. You have Lou Dort putting up big numbers who can get hot. You have the other Jalen Williams off the bench, and then it's just the fact that you've built this team around defense as well, and they all fit together perfectly. Because the other thing I'll say about this finals, this is the first finals since 2003 that both teams in the finals didn't pay a luxury tax. And you know what happened in 2003? The salary cap.
Oh, wow. Well, 2003 was the Spurs, right? I think it was the Spurs and Nets, if I'm not mistaken.
I
That's
believe so.
insane. That sounds right. I know it's definitely the Spurs that won. I just forget who they were facing then. So first time since 2003 that neither team has to have a luxury tax.
Yeah,
That's
like
cool.
while they're in the finals. So, like the Warriors had to pay a massive luxury tax when they were getting to the finals. The Miami Heat, obviously, and we're having to pay a massive luxury tax. But this is the first NBA Finals matchup where neither team is in the luxury tax.
That's good for the sport, honestly. And I feel like we're moving closer towards this being, I wouldn't say a norm, but more of a norm. Where like we're going to see teams like the Pacers, especially with OKC and the Pacers both making the finals, seeing more teams built that way. Okay, we have a superstar. We're going to build around them via the draft. We're going to be patient. We're not going to rush. We're not going to go after, we have Devin Booker. We're not going to trade for Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal. We're leaving the super team era. We're building it around just total cohesive team again, which I'm excited for. I feel like we're likely to see this again in the near future, I think.
Yeah, and I definitely like that. And then, you had like LeBron today too talking about like I don't know why like ring culture is such a big deal when I feel like LeBron invented exploded the entire genre and ushered in a new era. What are you talking about?
Well, I don't think he created ring culture. I think the ring chasing era, there's been people in the past prior to LeBron, but he was the one that's like, okay, Dwayne Wade, you sign this contract. Chris Bosh, you sign this contract. I'll join you and we'll all join forces. And then that caused, players like Kevin Durant, obviously, is the prime example. We have the Paul George of the world. And there's a bunch of other examples that we can include, whether, I know I'm forgetting a bunch of others, but those are the main. I feel like those are the main culprits. Teams that were deliberately stacked together to win a title, and a lot of these guys failed. Another one we could use is the Nets potentially, but the Nets failed so miserably that we don't even use them as an example. But the idea of stacking a bunch of talent together without the cohesive team building aspect of it is part of the reason why. It's because of the ring culture. LeBron didn't win a ring his first 7 years in Cleveland, so he goes and basically buys his rings in Miami. And, they win 2 rings. He gets what he needs, goes to Cleveland, gets his ring there. But the whole time, him hopping around, the reason why he went to LA as well was because Cleveland was getting old. He went to LA to win a ring with Anthony Davis. Like he's like the culprit of the ring chase era, ultimately.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. Don't be surprised by it when people are like, why are people so obsessed with it? Like, what do you mean? Like, every time you didn't have a team good enough to win a championship, you left. What is that called? What are you chasing when you do that? Like, and it's fine. It's just don't be like, where'd this come from? Like, you know exactly where it came from. But the NBA also does that when they're afraid a series is going to end too soon. They literally have a referee in professional sports, Scott Foster, name the extender. And there's been a lot of conversation around Scott Foster and then everyone letting their opinion be heard because, I'm finding out not a lot of people like the Thunder this year or SGA because they think they get an unfair whistle this year. So I did some research on Scott Foster and there's some interesting statistics about Scott Foster. Do you know what happened in 2006 to 07?
No.
It was the Tim Donaghy scandal. And Tim Donaghy and Scott Foster had over 134 short calls, which is way more than he had called any other. 134 times he talked to Scott Foster. So he was pretty much talking to this guy every other day. He talked to him more than any other ref by a mile. The next closest was like 50 something calls. And then Scott Foster and Tim Donaghy are out here pretty close, buddy going through the whole gambling scandal. Not only that, he has a notorious reputation where Chris Paul himself, who's the president of the Players Association, has said he's a company man, as well as Rasheed Wallace. Steph Curry and Steve Kerr have also had issues with him. And when a team is down 0-3 and Scott Foster referees, the team down 0-3 is 5-11, which is a 45% win percentage when the average win percentage for a team down 0-3 is 36%. What about teams down 3-2? Well, teams down 3-2 are 19-3 when Scott Foster refs.
19-3. What the fuck? So okay, so the 3-0-1, I don't think there's anything crazy, but the 3-2, 19-3 when he referees a game 6, the opposing team. So the real question is he doing that is he going to be game 6? Do we know that yet?
I don't think so, but the Pacers have not won a game that he's refed.
That's not a good sign. Well, I mean, if he is ultimately reffing, maybe they break the curse there. But Jesus Christ, that's suspicious to me. Is there any other Scott Foster facts?
So that's like the majority of it because like I thought like even '03 like you're still like 10% above the medium for '03, so there's clearly something there where you're helping rig the game. But 19-3 for teams down 3-2 in the NBA playoffs for Scott Foster, and then he called Tim Donaghy 134 times during during '06 to '07 when the entire gambling referee mafia scandal was going on. You don't think that's a little bit suspicious that he's buddy buddy with the number one cheater in sports who went to jail for it?
Yeah, because we're talking because he had 134. The rest of them had like what you said 50 something. 56 was the second most. So he
Yeah.
was contacting him basically 3 times as much as any other referee in the sport. In the midst of the biggest scandal in probably NBA history, honestly, I don't think there's one that has stained the reputation of the NBA quite nearly as much as the Tim Donaghy scandal. Part of the reason why the Kings didn't make the finals that year in 2002, and all the other ones he's rigged in the past.
Yeah, Chris Paul has not won a elimination game either that Scott Foster has refed. And then
And
there's
I
like
think I've
a
heard,
infamous Warriors game where like Chris Paul got ejected because of a technical foul.
I know that I believe Chris Paul has not won a game, has not won a playoff game when Scott Foster is refereed, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
He's got a heinous record with Steve. I'll look it up, but it's basic. Yeah, it's I believe he's winless.
Yeah, but like I feel like the fact that he's that much in contact with it, like when you ask like people like, well, since there's not like conclusive evidence, like but there's a lot of circumstantial evidence. It's like say a country was going to develop a nuclear weapon and then someone was going to stop them and then when they did stop them that person suddenly died and then the program immediately continued. Like it's like circumstantial